I am responsible to act, pray, think, and believe in line with what God's doing in the world. And so it is going to be a fun and festive morning. I appreciate you guys bringing me in for it. This first session, we're going to look at the task remaining. We're going to look at where are those peoples with no access to the gospel, and why should I care? I mean, why should I care? Then we're going to go into the main service, and we're going to look at the biblical understanding of why we should care. And then we're going to come back after the main service, and we're going to look at how I can live a global Christian life, even from Missoula. So I think you guys are going to have fun. I want to start by saying this. North Americans are virtually last when it comes to understanding the map. We are virtually last when it comes to finding geography. The National Geographic did a survey, and they found that 1 out of every 10 North Americans cannot point to North America on a map. That means if you got kidnapped by an alien and had to take a space Uber home, you would get the wrong continent, okay? Have you ever asked an American to find Afghanistan or Iran or Iraq forget Japan. They don't even exist. I've seen tattoos of Americans that got the world and they've left off Japan. I've seen this. I've drawn it in on their arm. It's a festive moment. So why do I say that? Well, here's the deal. John 3:16 says this, "For God so loves the world." Okay, that means as a Christ follower, I need to know the world. As a financial giver, I need to know how to give. Instead of just giving to my niece when she goes on a mission trip, I should probably think correctly because I have limited resources. I need to know what the world looks like because I want to give well. I want to pray well. I want to go well. And God loves the world, so I need to care. So I didn't do this, but hypothetically, what if I did? What if when you walked in the room this morning, you got a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper is a map. And I set you down, and I said to you this, on the top right corner, tell me how many missionaries in the world. On the top left corner, tell me how many missionaries in the unreached. On the bottom left corner, write down how many languages in the world. On the bottom right corner, tell me how many languages do not have the Bible. Now circle all the Muslim countries, the Buddhist countries, the Hindu countries. How much money goes to missions? How much money goes to unreached? How would you do it answering those questions? And hopefully you would say, I would do well. William Carey, the father of modern missions, in 1792 takes a boat from England to India. And before he leaves, someone asked him, Carey, how do we know if we're called? How do you know what God's will is? And Carey said, to know God's will, you need 2 things. You need an open Bible and you need an open map. We've done a great job as a church in America opening our Bible. We've done a terrible job at opening the map. I mean, even when it comes to the simplest thing ever, what is the goal of missions? There is actually much confusion on that, okay? We get our goal for missions not based on what we want to do. I used to think the goal of missions was reaching as many people as possible. Like, I thought I was crushing it. That's the goal of missions. We want to reach as many people as possible. And so everything I did was determined by that. I now realize, wait a second. When you look at the goal of missions, you have to ask the question, what does God want? He's the commanding officer. And it looks like the goal of missions is this: a community of Christ followers in every language group. That's the goal. Look at this. At the end of the book, we see Jesus on the throne. And Jesus, you are worthy to take the scroll and open its seals because you were slain and you purchased men for God from every tribe, language, people, and nation. So it looks like the commanding officer wants first and foremost people from every tribe, tongue, people, and language. He wants diversity. He sees them and he wants diversity. So he wants community of believers in every linguistical group. That's what he wants. So as a guy who lives in Arkansas that's somehow interested in missions, I now have to ask the question, what linguistical groups do not have communities of believers and they get first priority? That's what I need to say. That's as simple as it gets. The problem is people don't know who they are, they don't know where they are, and they don't know what they believe. But guess what? Over the last 50 years, we know exactly who these linguistical groups are, who don't have believers. We don't only know who, we know where they are. I not only know who they are and where they are, I know what they believe. The only thing we're lacking, hear me out, you're gonna freak. The only thing we're lacking are volunteers to go there. That's the only thing we're lacking. We have dialed in who they are, where they are, and what they believe. We just don't have the volunteers. So, where do we get this idea of every linguistical group or people group? Well, it's right there in the Great Commission. Go and make disciples of all nations. Now, that word nations, it hits us different. When we think of a nation in 2024, we think, oh my goodness, yes, there's 214 of them. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Egypt, Ethiopia, that's nation. But that's not what Jesus, that's not the word he used. He didn't use the Greek word agro for nations like that. He used the Greek word ethnos. And ethnos translated literally means people groups, linguistical groups. Now watch this. When we look at the Great Commission to go and make disciples of all nations, I thought that was just a generic term that we all need to go wherever God's put on our heart. I had no idea that was a specific command to go after every linguistical group and to ask ourselves the question, who doesn't have the gospel, and we will prioritize them. Now, let me show you the difference between thinking in terms of nations and thinking in terms of people groups, okay? So this is the nation Nigeria, all right? This is the nation Nigeria. And most of the time when people go to Nigeria, it's like, oh, I'm going to Nigeria. Okay, well, where are you going to go to Nigeria? I don't know. We're just going to fly into the capital and a church is hosting us and we're going to share the gospel and hopefully help the church. Oh, that sounds like a plan. But nobody asked this question. What people group are you going to in Nigeria? Because Nigeria doesn't look like this. Nigeria is made up of 455 people groups. 455 people groups. And what happens is, most of the time, who's hosting the mission trips? Churches. So most of the time, we're already going to Christian areas of Nigeria. So pick a dot in the middle. That would be a people group by the name of Yoruba. Yoruba's 86% Christian. Pick another dot in the middle. That's going to be the Igbos. The Igbos are 86% Christian. The largest area in the top, that's the Hausas, no believers. But nobody's asking the question, oh, you're going to Nigeria. To whom are you going? Are you going to the Igbos? Because they really probably don't need you as much. Are you going to the Yorubas? Because they're doing great. Or are you going to the Hausas? We're just excited that someone's doing something and they're getting out of Montana. Instead of asking the question, to whom are you going? If you had to write a one-sentence summary of the last 100 years of American missions, here it is. This would be a one-sentence summary. We have done a great job sending Christians to help Christians become better Christians. The vast amount of churches, when they do mission trips, that's how they do it. We're going to send Christians to go to Christians to help those Christians become better Christians. Virtually no one is asking the question, where are there no communities of Christ followers? Our church is going to raise up the young and send them over there. They're not doing that. They're just sort of like, oh, missions? Well, whatever you want to do. So how many people groups in the world? Well, there's 17,000 people groups. India, there's 2,400. Papua New Guinea, there's 860. We looked at Nigeria, 450. How many of them are considered unreached? No Bibles, no churches, no missionaries, no hope. Oh my goodness, 7,000. I know where they are. I know how many of them there are. I even know what they believe. I'm only missing one thing. That's it. I'm missing volunteers. Volunteers. Now watch this. This is an interesting passage. Paul, the apostle, is writing Romans, and he says this. So from Jerusalem all the way around to Illyricum, I have fully proclaimed the gospel. This is very interesting because, let me take you back in time. It's about 54 AD. Paul the apostle has planted roughly 40 churches. Best guess would be about 40. And mainly it's in the area of Turkey. And yet Paul, there's 10,000 believers in the Roman Empire. There's 60 million who live in the Roman Empire. At most, there's 10,000 believers. And yet Paul the apostle says this, from Jerusalem to Illyricum, I have fully proclaimed the gospel. Okay, now hang on, Paul. You mean from Jerusalem to Illyricum? That's 30 million people between there. And you're saying you can't find any work? You have to go to Spain? There's no more place for me to work. I have to go to, are you joking? From Jerusalem to Albania? And you can't find non-believers? But here's what Paul was doing. He was interested in those who had no access, because he knew from Jerusalem to Illyricum, there was about 30 million people, and that he had planted 40 churches, and there were 10,000 believers. And so guess what? They had access. They had some sort of hope. But Spain, between Illyricum and Spain, they had virtually nothing. So Paul wasn't just going where the need was, he was thinking strategically. I mean, you with me? This is incredible. And so what we want to do is we too want to think strategically. We just don't want to send Christians to help Christians become better Christians. We want to ask the question, who are the languages who have nothing? And let's let our church adopt a few of them and spearhead teams going to them. And in 15 years, you can see a community of Christ followers in those two people groups that you have adopted, or whatever you want to do. It's about a 15-year process to go from 0 to a community of Christ followers in an unreached people group. And we're going to talk about that, okay? I'm just sort of warming you up. This is just my intro. Is that okay? We're just sort of saying thank you for coming, all right? So if I had 3 points to give you this morning, my first point is this. We need to see the world the way God sees it. That's how we need, point number one, we need to see the world the way God sees it. How does God see it? It's not just the saved and the unsaved. He doesn't just see the world as saved and unsaved. He sees the world as reached and unreached, okay? Now, reached and unreached, that's how we need to see the world. Let me explain the difference to you. Let me tell you about a reached person, okay? A girl in Hamburg, Germany. She's 20 years old. She lives on the 4th floor of her apartment. She's not a believer. She's not a Christ follower. She doesn't own a Bible. But if she wanted to become a believer, there is a German-speaking Christian somewhere within her block that she can meet with. There is a German church that she can go to hear the gospel. There's a German podcast that she can hear the gospel. She can even go to Embassy Suites in Hamburg, check into a room, open the drawer, and get a German Bible. She's not a believer, but she's reached because she has access. Now, the unreached would be a 20-year-old, not in Hamburg, but in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. She has no Arabic Bible. She'll never meet an Arabic Christ follower. She'll never go to an Arabic-speaking church. There's just not one. So she is considered unreached. You and I, we need to reach the reached, our near neighbors. Montana would be considered reached. They have access. I need to reach Montana. I'm interested in reaching Montana. But simultaneously, I'm also responsible to reach the unreached. We need to reach the reached, and we need to reach the unreached. Let me give you another example. 3 cruise ships are off the coast. One is 5 miles out from the shore, one is 10 miles out from the shore, one is 15 miles out from the shore. All of a sudden, all 3, with thousands aboard each cruise ship, radio with a problem. The ships are sinking. They need emergency assistance. There's a helicopter base with 5 Navy SEALs. What's their plan? They go to the first cruise ship 5 miles out because it makes sense. It's closest. Then they load up people on the helicopter and they come back to base. Well, now they have a decision to make. They're not going to fly over the first cruise ship in order to go to the second 10 miles out, and they're surely not going to go to the 15-mile out cruise ship. And so they determine they're just going to go to the first cruise ship, come back to base, go to the first cruise ship, come back to base, go to the first cruise ship, come back to base. That's what we've done in missions because we think the goal of missions is reaching as many people as possible. But watch this. What if the commanding officer, before the helicopter leaves, says this? At the end of the day, I want there to be a representative from every cruise ship on this shore to tell the media what happened aboard their boat. Now it changes the entire strategy. That one command. Now we go to the third cruise ship first, the 15-mile out one. And then we go to the second. And then we go to the first. Why? The commanding officer. We don't know why. That's just what he's told us to do. I want a representative from every tribe, tongue, people, and language. Now that changes our strategy. Well, my friends from Missoula, I'm going to tell you this. There's not 3 cruise ships. There's 7,000. But the good news is there's not one rescue helicopter. There's hundreds of thousands of rescue helicopters called the church. The problem is the 100,000 rescue helicopters are crashing into each other trying to land on the first cruise ship. 10,000 of the helicopters are taking joyrides sightseeing a volcano. We have the helicopters. But it's like when you ask the church, what is the goal of missions? What are you guys doing in missions? Most people are like, oh, that's not for me. I mean, I'll tithe, and I think our church sends it somewhere. No. You're not just a tither. You need to be a global Christian. I don't even really understand what that means. And so the problem is the helicopters aren't communicating with each other. They don't know what the rescue operation is. And most of them think that it's sightseeing tours. So when you think about where are the unreached areas, these 7,000, they're in an area of the world called the 1040 window. And we call it the 1040 window because it's 10 degrees up from the equator, 40 degrees up, and it stretches across North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. 96% of all the unreached people groups are in this box. Indonesia falls just outside of the box, or we would say it's 100%. And so, my first point is this. We need to see the world the way God sees it. My second point is this. There are obstacles of reaching the unreached. There are obstacles. I'm going to give you 5. The unreached are unreached for a reason. Okay? Notice all the easy places have churches. I want to go to Hawaii. I want to go to Jamaica. I want to go to Cancun. I want to go to Patagonia, Argentina. God is calling me there. Right? The easy places have been reached. What's left? War zones, deserts, governments that are anti-Christian. And so there are obstacles of reaching the unreached. The first obstacle is the tribal world. Like I mentioned before, 860 people or 860 people groups just in Papua New Guinea alone. Okay? Now, when you think about the tribal world, think about this. You had a 3% chance of being born tribal. There's only 250 million tribal peoples. But think about the languages they speak. There's 6,913 languages in the world. And the tribal world, these 251 million, speak the majority. 5,100 languages, which means if you're going to go plant churches in the tribal world, you're probably going to have to learn 2 languages, fight malaria, and after you've learned 2 languages, you can communicate to, are you ready? 3,100 people. 1,600 people. If you learn Spanish, you can talk to 1 billion people. If you learn Arabic, you can talk to 200 million people. If you know English, you can talk to 1 billion people. If you know Malayali, you can talk to 3,300. If you know Wantakia, you can talk to 1,200. If you know the Yimby Yimby, you can talk to 1,100. But God is interested in every linguistical group. And so what that means is 71% of the languages are spoken by 3% of the population. We have friends that moved to Papua New Guinea. They learned 2 languages, built a house in the woods, and I was talking to them recently, and I asked them a question. I said, man, why is it so hard to plant churches in Papua New Guinea? Why is it so hard? And they're like, well, first of all, it's difficult to evangelize because language. No one's even learned the language. There's no Rosetta Stone. There's no AI to do this. There's no even alphabet. You have to create an alphabet. And then their holy books. They don't have a holy book. They don't have writing. You have no idea. It takes you a year to learn just what they believe. And I was like, well, how close is the closest Starbucks? And they're like, oh, like Australia. And I was like, okay. So not a lot of people signing up to go plant churches in the tribal world. But man, what if this church had people who were mobilized from this church, got trained at Ethnos Bible, and then was sent by this church as you guys are fully aware of who they are and where they're going, and you're helping them get there. The tribal world is a major obstacle. The Hindu world, what a difficult... Hinduism is the 3rd largest religion in the world. Christianity is first, about 33%. Islam is second, about 33%. Hinduism is about 15%. Think about this. There is no founder of Hinduism. There is no one holy book of Hinduism. What does it mean to be a Hindu? That's an interesting question. This is a fun story. European explorers came over the mountains of Turkey and went into India, and they were in this valley called the Indus Valley. And they met people. They were explorers, and they met people. And these people worshiped many gods and sang hymns. And these European explorers went back to their home, and they were talking to people. We saw people, and they worshiped hundreds of gods, and they sang hymns, and we call them the Indus peoples. And over time, Europeans couldn't say the word Hindu without a strong H. And so these people who worship many gods became known as Hindus. So what does it mean to be a Hindu? Well, again, think about this. 15% of the world's population, 4 out of 5 people in India are Hindu. Think about this. Christians make up only 2.3% of the population. Hinduism is the 3rd largest religion in the world. There are obstacles to reaching the Hindu world. But what if this church became familiar with India and the 2,400 people groups and raised up someone from this church to go to the unreached in India? And you prayed, gave, visited, helped, recruited the team. You. With 2 trucks and a gun. You. Me? You. You want me to recruit for missions? Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. We need the whole church if we're going to do this. Wait, I'm different. I'm an entrepreneur and I got 2 kids in college. Yes. So, there are obstacles to reaching the unreached. The Hindu world, the tribal world. What about this one? The Chinese world. The Chinese world. 1 billion Chinese. If you're raised in China, you can be a Confucius or a Taoist. Those 2 religions have no understanding of God. They deny who God is. And so every Chinese you meet, if they were raised in China, they have no understanding of who God is. But maybe this church could find an unreached people group in China and mobilize from this church a team. And then you send them and you pray for them and you visit them. And you can go from India to China on your visit trip. And you visit them, and you recruit a team for them, and you help them raise funds. You, me, you. No, I'm not called. You, me, you. And then you've got the Muslim world, Oh my goodness, 27 Muslim countries. When you think about the Muslim world, Muhammad, who was believed in many gods growing up, he's the founder of Islam, and he came across people who were Jews and Christians and heard this one God concept. He denied the crucifixion of Jesus. He denied the Trinity. He denied the divinity of Christ. And so he set out his own mechanism in how to get to God. And by the time when he was born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, right there in the middle, this is when he dies. The green is Islam. And then about 30 years after his death, how much it spread, and then about 100 years. Basically, everything Paul did in Acts, gone. Now Muslim. Everything you read in Acts, completely Muslim. And so, again, Muslims are 33% of the population, and there's only 2 world religions that are what we would call evangelistic. That means they want to convert you, and that is Christianity and Islam. Those are the 2 evangelistic religions. And so if you go into a mosque in Los Angeles, which I do a few times a year, you can go into a mosque and you can see That's the holy place of Muslims. On the wall of the mosque, they will have this map of the world. It's all in Arabic, and it's color-coded. And it's basically the imam or the priest, the pastor came to me and said, listen, the green represents the areas of the world that are highly Islamic. The pink and red represents the parts of the world that aren't. We're asking Allah to send our youth to the pink and red. They have their own 80/80 window. This is the Islamic unreached map of the world. Do you know how excited that they are that Christians have no clue in missions? Do you know how pumped they are that our goal is to send Christians to help Christians become better Christians? Do you realize how incredible it is that no Christian parents raise their kids to be missionaries in the Middle East? You know how they love those facts? And I'll tell them those facts. I'll be like, guys, can I tell you what's going on in the Christian church? Like, yes. I was like, listen to this. First of all, no one's going to the Muslim world. We have one missionary to every 1 million Muslims. They're like, no way. I'm like, yeah, it gets better. They're like, how? I was like, well, second of all, I've never met a Christian that's raising their kids to be missionaries to the Muslim world. No, I haven't. Really? They don't exist. Well, where are they sending to them to be missionaries? They're not. Keep going with the good news. All of our money is given to already Christian places. Stop! Stop! Are you just making this up? No. It gets better. It can't get better. It does. Most Christians don't even know what you guys believe and don't care. What? I know. You got to stop. I'm freaking out right now. I know. It gets better. It gets better. It gets better. They don't even know how many Muslim countries, they don't even know how to get to you guys. What? And they think you're all terrorists. No. Yes. No. Yes. You guys are safe. These are conversations I have with Muslims who are interested in reaching the world for Allah. And we compare each other's notes. And I see how many billions they're sending to the areas that are Christian. Have you ever sat down with a Muslim and compared strategies on missions? It will humble you, embarrass you, and make you think your God doesn't exist. You will scratch your head and say, we are horrible. I mean, if you've never done it, you should try it. It will blow your mind. And then the Buddhist world. Remember, point one, we need to see the world the way God sees it. Point two, there are obstacles in reaching the unreached. The Buddhist world. Siddhartha Gautama was a Hindu. He got disillusioned with Hinduism, and so he ended up founding a new religion with the idea of no God and no soul, and that is Buddhism. And there are 650 million Buddhists in the world today. So when you just even look at countries, don't even look at people groups, look at countries, and you see the staggering statistic of yes, all we do is send Christians to help Christians become better Christians. And if you have a Bible and a passionate heart, just go and do something. We don't even care what you do. Just do it. And it's really staggering. Every blue dot you see is 50,000 Christians. Every blue dot you see is 50,000 Christians. Every green dot you see is 50,000 Muslims. Every green dot is 50,000 Muslims. Every orange dot is 50,000 Buddhists. Every orange dot is 50,000 Buddhists. And every yellow dot is 50,000 Hindus. And we are so excited to send Christians, to help Christians become better Christians. And whatever you want to do in missions, just do it. I don't know what you're doing anyway. It's probably going to be great, more than what anybody else is doing. Just do it. And no one is strategically thinking, where are the communities of Christ followers that don't exist, and let's go there. Point number one, there are obstacles to reaching the unreached. That was point number two. Point number one is we need to see the world the way God sees it. Point number two, there are obstacles in reaching the unreached. Point number three, here it is. We are all to be workers. We are all to be workers. We're all to be workers. If you come to the main service, that's going to be my main point. If you're a Christ follower, welcome to the family. The family business is missions, and we're all a part of the family. 9 words summarizes the last 38 minutes of me speaking. 9 words. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. The harvest is plentiful. All I want to do for the next 4 minutes or so is this. I want to unpack these 9 words. Okay, I want to ask you 4 questions. I'm going to ask you a who question and a why question, and then a who question and a why question. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, a who question, a why question, and a who question and a why question. And so if you want to, sometime this week, go to Clyde Coffee and sit down with a friend that's not here this morning and just draw out these 9 words and ask them these 4 questions. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. Who's the harvest? Well, the harvest is the lost in both the reached and the unreached areas. That's the harvest. Who's the harvest? The harvest is the lost in the reached and the unreached areas. Second question, who, why, who, why? Why are they plentiful? Well, the honest, simple answer is Muslims have more kids. The average American has 2 kids. America is 67% Christian. The average person in the UK has 2 kids. The UK is 67% Christian. The average family in Finland has 2 kids. Finland is 70% Christian. The average family in Pakistan has 9 kids. Pakistan's 99% Muslim. The average family in Burkina Faso has 9 kids. Burkina Faso is 99% Muslim. The average family in Afghanistan has 7 kids. Afghanistan is 100% Muslim. So they're plentiful, they're great, and they're growing. There's more unreached today than yesterday. I stood at University of Oklahoma in 1999 in front of 400 college students, and I said these words. There's 1.8 billion unreached. I was there a few months ago, stood on campus, and I said, there's 3.4 billion unreached. The unreached grow at 100,000 a day. The unreached grow at 36 million a year. And the church is taking joyrides in helicopters. And everybody else thinks it's not their problem. So the harvest, the lost, and the reached and the unreached is plentiful. The workers, who, why, who, why? Who's a worker? A worker is a Christ follower who's actively reaching the reached and the unreached. That's a worker. A worker is a Christ follower who lives in Montana, who's actively revolving their life around reaching the reached and the unreached. Oh, man. Are you joking? How does Jesus describe the workers? Few. Few. That's one of the saddest words. You might meet one in your life, but probably not. Few. Few. Why are the workers few? Well, I got soccer practice, I'm coach, I got a lot of kids and bills. I'm distracted. Why are the workers few? Well, I don't even know what the 1040 window is. I thought it was a tax form. I'm uninformed. And then why are the workers few? Well, man, these governments don't want me there. The languages are hard. It's $2,000 for a flight. The unreached are hard to reach. So the workers are few because I'm distracted, I'm uninformed. And when I get non-distracted and informed, I'm like, oh no, So I'm crushed at every level. My prayer is that this church would be a part of reversing the verse. Instead of the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. The harvest is few, and the workers are plentiful. What a magnificent vision to reverse the verse.